Hey everybody, Brett here with the Tuning School, and you guys have been asking us to do some guest interviews, and that's what we have for you today on this Tech Tuesday. We're going to be interviewing Brian Tooley, owner and founder of Brian Tooley Racing. We're going to be talking about camshafts and airflow dynamics. Now, for those of you that don't know who Brian is, which is probably a rare thing if you own an LS application, he has been in the industry for over 20 years, working with the likes of Comp Cams and Summit Racing and a ton of guys to make some of the best camshafts on the market. So today we're going to be jumping into everything you need to know about cams. Brian, on behalf of me and our viewers, we want to thank you so much for being with us here today. We know that you're a super busy guy and it's hard to nail you down with your schedule, so we want to thank you very much for being here to answer our questions.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So first things first, what is it that makes you passionate about camshafts and airflow dynamics, and why did you decide to start Brian Tooley Racing?
Well, it really goes back to, being a young man. At the age of 18, I bought a brand new C28 off the showroom floor, and I was actually an electronics technician at that time. I was in the Navy, learning electronics, which was my first passion. And, and honestly, I just got enthralled with performance, horsepower, making power. Obviously spent a lot of money on that car, bought a lot of parts for it, built a couple of engines for it. And, so I just, really got enthralled with the dynamics of, how do you make more power? And, at one point I home ported some aftermarket heads for it and replaced the stock heads that was on it. And I think I picked it up about a second and 10 miles per hour or something, so that's like, wow, that's pretty impressive gains there, So, and that's really probably what ultimately led to me, buying a flow bench and starting Total Engine Airflow.
That's awesome. So, what do you think has been the biggest contributing factor in making BTR such a household name, not only in the LS world, but really across the industry as a whole?
I think it's a couple of things. I think one, just being in the industry a very long time, gaining the respect from lots of other people in the industry. And then just being very honest with people through the years. People called and wanted a part, they didn't need a part. I would tell them, no, you don't need that. And, building those relationships and building that trust. When I started this business in my basement, I called every shop that I could find, and I just one at a time educated them. Okay, you're seeing lifter failures with this spring because of this. You're seeing valve tip failures with this spring because of this. I educated those guys one at a time, and what I didn't realize would happen was that all of those dealers that I educated then become the spokesperson for BTR and really help spread that name.
It makes a lot of sense. This is a very people-based business, and if people trust you and your product, then that's going to go a long ways. So for our more novice viewers at home, what exactly is a camshaft doing to increase the power? So what are the specs? What are the things it's doing to make more power? And also, what's the BTR method for achieving that power?
Well, it's simple. Obviously, the longer you hold the intake valves open and closed, the more power you're going to make. An OEE who's trying to meet emissions can't run the amount of duration that we do because, you end up with a lot of overlap, and then camshaft overlap can definitely adversely affect emissions. So the OEEs, they're held to, the standards that they're trying to meet, fuel mileage, emissions, et cetera. And then, when you swap to an aftermarket cam where where you have the increased duration holding those valves open, obviously you're going to make a lot more power. You can swap a cam in a naturally aspirated LS engine, pick up 70 real horsepower sometimes. And, that's a huge power gain, of course. People love it, and a lot of people love the sound. But something I want to touch on is valve lift. A lot of people think that lift is the magic answer to making more power, but lift actually works against you in terms of dynamics and reliability, because anytime lift goes up, valve train dynamics go down, and anytime valve train dynamics go down, durability goes down. And getting the duration right, getting the valve open and close points correct are far more important than how much total lift you run.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's funny you actually mentioned something about the sound and people loving the sound. In our segment of the industry, people are paying a lot of money for these chop tunes. It's a tune that makes a car sound like it has a camshaft. We're all car guys, we all love that sound, right? It's 90% of the reason, in my opinion, a lot of guys put a camshaft in their car. So what exactly is the technical reason behind why it's making that sound?
Well, it's more, a lot of people think that it's all overlap related, that the more overlap you have, the more intake reversion you have, which is true, and that does make some sound. But the big thing is just simply opening the exhaust valve sooner. Because the sooner you open that exhaust valve, the more pressure there is in that cylinder, and the more sound you get out the exhaust. You know, one of the cams that I did early on for, the CTSV LSA engines, we did a stage 1 or stage 2 cam, and it very low overlap, like negative 10 degrees of overlap, but I went with a really aggressive exhaust valve open. And then, one of the first guys to run it, he sent me a sound clip of it, and I was just like, holy mackerel. It sounded like a relatively big cam. So a lot of people think it's overlap, but it's actually typically exhaust valve open. Obviously overlap is a function there, but so both of those, it really all blends, I guess, to give you the sound. And then obviously as those events change one way or another, it can change the sound.
That's awesome. So you actually mentioned something interesting about it, the CTSV guy saying it sounded like a really big cam. It's really common if you're at a car show, somebody asks you what your cam specs are and you tell them and they go, oh wow, that's a big cam. Could you explain to people at home what that means? What are the specs you're looking for? Because obviously the cam physically isn't changing in size, but what are the technical reasons what makes a cam smaller or bigger in your opinion?
My biggest thing I look for is the amount of overlap. When you look at, let's say, our LS1, LS2 cams, we have 4 stages, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, we've talked about intake valve close being the most important event. All 4 of those cams have an intake valve close within 1 degree of all 4 cams. But the overlap goes from, negative few degrees to 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and then 15 degrees. So we're opening the exhaust valve a few degrees later, but all of the duration that we're adding is being added in terms of overlap. And a lot of people think that overlap is bad. Overlap's terrible. You don't want overlap. Overlap kills torque. And while overlap kills torque at an idle, at wide open throttle, by the time you get to 3,000, 3,500 RPM, increased overlap will start making more power by that low of RPM. And a lot of people don't realize that.
That's really interesting. So what exactly is the technical reasoning behind why that overlap is increasing that power?
A lot of people look at the exhaust kind of like it's a vacuum cleaner. So as as you're blowing down that cylinder, that exhaust gas is moving, out the head or out of the exhaust. As you open that intake valve sooner and hold that exhaust open later, you're increasing the amount of airflow that goes through the engine, during overlap, and you also start the air flowing into the cylinder sooner in the cycle, which only, because people don't realize how heavy air is. People are like, well, air doesn't weigh anything. I did the math one time. A 100 foot by 100 foot by 100 foot cube of air weighs almost 2,000 pounds. And a lot of people don't realize air has that much mass. And because air has mass, it has inertia. So you've got to get it moving just like anything else that has mass. And so the sooner you get it moving, the better off you're going to be.
That's actually really interesting. I never really thought about it in that way. So I suppose when that intake stroke is happening, the piston's at the top of its stroke, and so it hasn't created a lot of volume of draw in on the intake side, but having that exhaust side open while the intake side is open as well kind of gets that air flowing through the cylinder, which is going to fill it sooner. So that actually makes a lot of sense. I just never thought of it that way before.
It does, and it's interesting because Isky, decades ago, called the overlap cycle the 5th cycle. And it truly is a 5th cycle. You can use that 5th cycle to change power quite a bit. John Causey, everybody knows John Causey. He's a great guy, and he told a story of a 150 horsepower cam that he did where he changed only the exhaust overlap. He had a cam in one of his 1,800 horsepower naturally aspirated engines and he only pulled exhaust duration out of overlap. He actually went from a lot more exhaust overlap than intake to fairly symmetrical intake and exhaust overlap, and the engine lost 150 horsepower. That graphically demonstrates, how much power there is just in overlap if you know how to time those events.
Very cool. That's really interesting information that I think a lot of our viewers are going to love actually hearing that and being able to learn from what we're talking about. That's actually really cool. So what are the new and exciting things coming up from BTR in the coming months? What can people expect to see from you and the cool stuff you're doing?
Gosh, we have so much stuff going on. Obviously, some of it is confidential. We are about to release our first patented product, which I'm obviously excited about. It's an idea I had 7 years ago, and to see those ideas go from an idea to market is obviously pretty exciting. We're doing more and more in-house camshaft development. A lot of the camshafts that we sell today were developed in conjunction with different dealers across the country, or maybe I work with Richard Holdener at West Tech to do the cam testing on an engine dyno there, like we did the LS3 cams. So, so the testing has been done a lot of different places. We added the Spintron here last year, and we're in the process now of adding a brand new engine dyno. And so the in-house engine dyno is going to give us the capability to do a lot more testing in a lot less time. And because we can go from, camshaft design, and we've also bought the software to design cam lobes in-house, which is something that is actually very rare. There's a lot less people. There's people out there with cam grinders that actually don't design their own cam lobes. So to actually have, the cam lobe design software is very exciting for us. Then to be able to, take that design, put it on a Spintron, put it on the engine dyno, we're excited to, really start doing the absolute best job we can in camshaft powertrain. But then we're also working on, we came out with the equalizer intake for cathedral port. We're following that up with an LS3 intake manifold. But then, during the development of all of that, another epiphany came to us for intake manifold design. So we're actually launching 6 intake manifold designs, that we're really excited about.
That's great, Brian. Your products are already amazing, and we all love them, and it sounds like they're only going to get even better from here. Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate your time greatly, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks again for having me.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a little bit more about camshafts than you did before. If you did like this video, it's the first of 2. We're going to be back with Brian Tooley 2 weeks from now talking more about camshafts, so make sure you check that video out for sure. If you liked the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and as always, stay tuned.